everyone, and welcome to week 10 of year 2 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 1. We're still reading through the book of Genesis. This is the second half of chapter 9. Last week we saw the final conclusion of the flood, with God placing his bow in the sky as a sign of his promise to not destroy all life from the earth again. He also gave Noah and his family permission to eat meat, but commanded them never to eat or drink the blood, because the life was in the blood. We discussed this at length and talked about how there is both a positive and a negative reason for this. The positive reason is that the only blood we are to receive is the blood of the Lord, which gives us everlasting life as we are united with his life in Holy Communion. The negative reason is that one of the ways pagan people participate in the rebellion of the demons against God is by drinking blood with the idea of taking life and power from whatever creature they have killed and making it their own. We don't see many pagan people any longer, so we don't see this being done, but this was a very normal part of pagan worship before Jesus Christ came and overthrew the power of the demons over humankind. This week we will see what happens next to Noah and his family, and how, very sadly, one of his sons falls into a great sin, and actually almost the same exact sin that God has just forbidden. So, this is verse 18. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. Now these three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was peopled. Noah was the first tiller of the soil. He planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and became drunk, and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon both their shoulders, and walked backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a slave of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed by the Lord my God be Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. I think this may be one of the strangest and most difficult passages of Scripture to read. It doesn't quite seem to make sense. Why is it that big of a deal that Ham sees his father naked? It's embarrassing, but why does it result in this curse? Why is it such a big deal that Shem and Japheth refuse to look and walk backwards to cover their father with a garment? So there's a lot of different possibilities here. If you Google this, you'll come up with any number of different explanations. But this is what I think is happening. Whatever the details, the fundamental problem here is that Ham is celebrating the weakness and the humiliation of his father. He's rejoicing in the fall of someone else. Now, Noah is not blameless. Drunkenness is not a great thing. Now, he's in his own private tent, so this isn't a great and grave sin, but still this is a moment of weakness. This is not Noah at his best. But Ham, walking into it, seeing it, he takes advantage of it. He rejoices in it, he celebrates it, and he brings this piece of news, this image of his father brought low, and he brings it out to his brothers. What Ham effectively is trying to do here, he's the youngest son, but he's trying to take this knowledge, this humiliation of his father, and use it to gain power and authority to climb the ladder with his brothers. And what we actually see as we continue through Scripture is that indeed the descendants of Ham, that's actually a more common mistake than you might think, but the descendants of Ham, they do become powerful. The Canaanites are very powerful, and very wealthy as they finally settle in what ultimately becomes the land of Israel, but first of all belongs to the descendants of Canaan, this son of Ham. Another son of Ham is Mizraim, and Mizraim is the one who goes to Egypt and starts and begins the nation of Egypt. The people of Israel understood this Mizraim to be something like the first Pharaoh. So there's a lot going on here, and it looks like Ham has succeeded. His descendants are becoming these massively powerful. They're sort of taking over this position of leadership in the world, and they're doing it. And he's doing it by taking advantage, by seizing on the weakness of others. It's actually, we can even say, a type of exactly the thing that God had just forbidden. Because what's the point of forbidding the Israelites to eat blood? He's specifically forbidding them to steal life and power from some other creature by destroying it, bringing it down low, and taking that to themselves. They're allowed to eat the meat so that it sustains their life, but they're not allowed to steal the life force in this sense. So cannibalism is forbidden from this point, and also the eating of blood, even of an animal. And in the same way, what Ham is doing, stealing his father's power, his father's authority in the family because of his father's weakness. It's not just a moment of disrespect. This is Ham trying to usurp his father's place in the family. And what we see, again, from the success of his descendants is that it looks like he succeeds. What Noah is saying then, when he curses Ham and curses Canaan, is not so much that, it's not that Noah says these things and that causes Ham's descendants to become slaves. Much less is it any sort of justification of slavery, although it's been used that way. For instance, in the American South, this was a passage that was used to argue that slavery was okay. This is an abuse of the text. It's not its point. The point is to say Ham has tried to make his descendants the masters of their brothers and cousins, to make them the masters of the world. And of course, it's a little bit of a prophecy, because eventually we will see the descendants of Shem, the Israelites, actually being slaves to the descendants of Ham in Egypt. But it's not going to last, is the point. What Noah is saying is this idea that might makes right, this method of gaining power, of stealing the life and the authority and the power of others through their weakness or through dominating them. This may work for a time, but it will end in destruction. And at the end of the day, no one will remember the Canaanites. You won't be able to find any actual descendants of the Canaanites or of those Egyptians as such. Their power will end. And those who were faithful, Shem and Japheth, they will be the ones that are successful, that God will enlarge, that God will bless. This is something that we all should take very seriously, because our world is full of people who believe that you see what you want, you take what you want, and if you have to step over some people to do so, then, if they're not strong enough to stop you, it's their fault. If we can quote what Christ said in the New Testament, it shall not be so among us. As he says, whoever wants to be great among you will be the servant of all. And this is ultimately the point. We are called to walk in humility. We are called to walk in love. We are called to never seize power at the expense of someone else. That's not the Christian way. So, that I think is the message here. This is why Ham is sinful. In seizing power, in taking advantage of his father's weakness, in rejoicing in his father's humiliation, he is actually walking the same path of the demons. He's trying, he's showing this will to power, this will to dominate. And this is bringing the same sinfulness that led to the destruction of the world before the flood right back in again. We're going to see the consequences of this going down the road as some of the descendants of Ham and the others, they try not just to take power from one another, but to actually seize power from God, which again, we're right back where we started. So that's next week rather. For now, God bless you all. I'll see you on day 2.